episode 50 of Grace and Steel. I'm Kevin Steele.
And I'm Kevin Michael Grace.
This episode, we're going to do the lazy journalist thing and take our topic and title from social media. We'll call it hashtag Where's Hillary, and it's all about the Democratic presidential candidate's health, a topic that was pushed into the mainstream media by alternative and social media. The MSM has tried its best to dismiss this speculation that Clinton is extremely ill, calling it irresponsible exaggeration and or conspiracy theories. But all that's done is make said speculation more fun. And it's putting Clinton in an awkward position, where she has little or no room for slip-ups in public, lest we judge her. So we're going to talk about all that evidence internet sleuths have amassed, and we'll mull over its implications. But first, let's pass judgment. Kevin, do you think the speculation over Hillary's health is warranted? Or is it merely a Trump troll fun fest?
Well, I think it's both.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously, it is a fun fest because a lot of people are having fun with this, but I think that it's a serious issue. John F. Kennedy was elected president in 1960, and there had been concerns about his health. He had been in accidents, plane crash, etc.
War.
Well, yes. But he and his people lied about the state of his health. He was suffering from a number of conditions. Well, one of them was fairly obvious because he had been on steroid treatments for many years, to the extent that it actually changed the shape of his skull. That Kennedy had the skull, the death's head Irish look, like his brother Robert. And after this continuing steroid treatment, he got the other kind of Irish face, which is the sirloin face, the Tip O'Neill face.
Mm-hmm.
After Kennedy's death, he became a secular saint, taken from us far too soon after merely 1,000 days. And then with the revisionism of the 1970s, a lot of people were shocked at his irresponsibility, because if the full extent of his health problems had been known, he never would have been elected president, because subsequent people looking at medically trained people looking at his health conditions concluded there was some question about whether he would have lived to the next election. That's how ill he was.
He was also on a lot of painkillers too, wasn't he?
Yes. Yes, indeed. A whole congery of medicines.
Mm-hmm. Which can affect your judgment, let's face it.
Yes, with all this talk about nuclear codes, and we'll get back to the nuclear codes later, John F. Kennedy was, of course, in a big nuclear codes situation, which was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Kennedy brought about a situation where the world was almost destroyed. So I think that if you're going to be dicing with death, with the Soviets or with anyone else, you should really be in control of your faculties.
Yes, and we had, prior to that, of course, the Roosevelt situation at the end of the Second World War, where his imminent death was hid from the American electorate.
Yes, Claire Booth Luce, I believe, was the only person with enough courage to speak about this publicly, and she was vilified for doing so. We also have the situation with Woodrow Wilson, that Woodrow Wilson was incapacitated in his second term, and Woodrow Wilson's wife, Edith, ran the American government for a couple of years, and this was kept secret.
Right. And Ronald Reagan, there was some suggestion at the end of his second term that he was showing definite signs of Alzheimer's then as well.
Well, I think that he may have been showing signs of Alzheimer in his first term. I remember the debates with Mondale, and I was getting a bad feeling about this. There was a particular debate where he started telling this story about driving alone one night on the Pacific Coast Highway. And I was getting a very bad messianic vibe from this.
Right.
And he was telling this story, and I thought, I do not like where this story is going. Literally, I don't. Where are you going, Dutch, with this story? And the anxiety was building up in me and with the audience that was watching, the panelists and the people at home. And then thankfully, the moderator said that he was out of time, and that was the end of the debate, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Now, I suspect I seriously suspect that amongst Hillary's people and the DNC, there is a fear that she is going to be speaking in public or perhaps in one of the debates with Trump, and something is going to happen. She is, her head's going to be jerking back and forth, like that incident a couple of weeks ago, and we'll get back to that incident.
Mm-hmm.
And that the moderator will say, Secretary Clinton, is everything all right? And Secretary Clinton will say something like, why does everything taste purple? And then the blood will come pouring out of her nose, and it will be like the elevator scene in The Shining.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I mentioned after the DNC, it was we had talked about this prior to that quite a bit, actually, in private, and I think even on the podcast. And the fact that she didn't fall over during her speech made me think, oh, well, this is something of a victory for her. Setting the bar too low, I guess, we could be doing that with her as well,
She had a pretty much continuous coughing fit during her speech, which she attempted to hide with the applause lines, of course, of which there are many in such a speech. Now, anyone who has ever suffered from coughing fits, you have a cold or the flu or just a dry throat, sometimes that happens. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this has happened to you. It's happened to me. That you're not coughing for very long before you find yourself exhausted, correct?
Right, yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of muscle energy, stomach muscle, solar plexus, that kind of thing. But the thing about the swallowing, actually there was a thing that came out from Mike Cernovich. It was a paper produced by someone that he knew, an anesthesiologist or something like this, that speculated that Hillary had Parkinson's, and the swallowing, difficulty swallowing, is apparently one of the symptoms of the onset of Parkinson's. Now, this paper concluded that she is, mid to late stages in it already, like she's had it for a while. And this is not good. And so they're dragging her across the finish line here. But, what's the solution to this? You just have to let her continue. You can say, well, have her turn over her health records, but, who's to say that?
Well, I should mention that the Cernovich report comes from an anesthesiologist.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
Let's go over it a little bit here. In 2009, Clinton fell and broke her elbow. Little else was made public. On December 17, 2012, while Secretary of State, she fell and suffered a concussion. Now, I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I'll mention it again. I don't know what to make of this story because I followed this at the time and I wrote about it at the time. And there was a link on previous podcast to a joke that I'd made, that Hillary was diagnosed with a concussion, even though her doctor said at no time was she admitted to the hospital. Now, unless she's carrying around MRI machine, PET scan, CAT scan, this means they didn't take pictures of her brain.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they take pictures of her brain? Because a concussion is a brain bruise.
Yes, they may have been playing with words there, though. I know this from recent family incidents. You can go to ER, you can get all kinds of tests, you can do this and do that and not be admitted to the hospital. You can be in there for days and not be formally admitted. So there's a possibility she could have gone to the hospital and she could have had tests, and they're just saying, well, she was not admitted, meaning she was not formally admitted to the hospital proper. That's a possibility, is all I'm suggesting.
There's a suggestion she suffers from post-concussion syndrome. Now, Bill Clinton, he made a throwaway line that it took her, she was knocked out, words to that effect, for 5 or 6 months. I find this rather extraordinary that this didn't get more attention because I follow baseball and people take concussions far more seriously than they did in the past. And if you are still suffering from problems from a concussion after 5 or 6 months, that's a very serious brain bruise we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely something's going on there.
The brain is not a particularly regenerative organ. As I could be wrong about this. I'm sure listeners will correct us if I'm wrong. But the brain over a man or woman's lifetime doesn't get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Rather the reverse. It gets weaker, and we understand that it gets weaker.
They make a couple of really good observations in this report, even though, this guy is not a doctor. But he has, I think it says his brother here is an RN as well. Both of them long experience in hospital situations. They point out that the broken elbow, that was from a fall. And that she appears to have been in better shape there because the injured elbow shows signs of reflex, defensive, falling and being defensive. The second injury demonstrates that she didn't have the same kind of reflexes. So they deduced from that this was some kind of degenerative, there was some kind of transition there between the first and the second fall. And so, there are a lot of careful, interesting observations.
Well, of course, we don't know how many falls there have been. There was a YouTube video that you may have seen of her walking up the metal stairs to a private plane and then falling when she gets to the top. I don't know about you. I have not reached that stage in my life where I'm falling all the time.
Right.
I'm not looking forward to that stage.
Yeah, there was that incident as well. I don't know whether you recall it, and I wish I had the date. It just came to mind now because I had joked to you about it. The press were basically kept away from her boarding the plane. They were kept at a great distance. They didn't understand why, and they kind of made light of it, but they were not allowed near the plane when she boarded. I kind of joked to you at the time it was because she pooped her pants or something like this, right?
Right.
But it could have been something more serious. We don't know. So, how many times has that happened? Has she been kept away from the public eye because of these incidents? It's, now the speculation's getting, rampant. Have you seen this business about the catheter where people are speculating from the lines they see in Hillary's pants that she's wearing a Foley catheter? Have you seen this?
I have seen it.
What do you think?
Well, I think that Hillary has gone into joke territory here, that it's very bad for an old person to be considered flesh and blood instead of a person, to be considered a collection of organs, bones, blood vessels, etc.
Oh,
You don't do that with a young person unless that young person has been injured or is sickly. It tends to happen to old people. You've seen it because old people get to a certain age. Eventually, all old people do, or unless they die suddenly on the golf course or whatever, their body starts breaking down, and it's one thing after another, right?
okay. Yeah.
And it appears what we're seeing with Hillary is that it's one thing after another.
Are you accepting their speculation then? Or are you just thinking it's joke speculation?
Well, the internet to the rescue, right?
Okay.
We have a couple of hashtags. Hillary stools.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
As you've seen, stool has two meanings. And one of those meanings is a chair, a little chair without a back, or not much of a back. And Hillary travels everywhere with a stool close to hand and with pillows. And of course, we've talked about pillows. Pillows have a dual use as well.
Oh.
But she can't stand up for very long, it would appear.
Okay.
There's also the other hashtag, where's Hillary?
This one's a big one. Yeah, this one kind of exploded. And actually, there's a response, where's Trump? But where's Hillary, I think, has more relevance.
I thought that Trump was in Louisiana.
Well, that's just it. It was pretty easy to answer. It seems like the technique, the Hillary Clinton campaign is, just take it and turn it around.
Well, Trump responded, sleeping.
For where's Hillary, yeah.
Yes. Now, the question has been brought up of these virtual diagnoses. Now, in the past, we've had virtual diagnoses, mental health diagnoses of Barry Goldwater. There was a Ralph Ginsburg wrote an infamous article where he got all these psychologists to say that Barry Goldwater was nuts. And we saw it with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was shot, and then he later had an operation for an intestinal condition. And Reagan was reduced to a bunch of body parts. And this was not good for him because the last 4 or 5 years of his presidency were, to a large extent, dominated by the theme of his health. After the '84 blowout, the difference is that Reagan was going to be president for another 4 years, except if he died. And as it turns out, he didn't. I'm quoting from a piece on Fox News, which picked up this story, that Trump said in his foreign policy speech, Hillary Clinton lacks the judgment, the temperament, and the moral character to lead this nation. Importantly, she also lacks the mental and physical stamina to take on ISIS and all the many adversaries we face, not only in terrorism, but in trade and every other challenge we must confront to turn this country around. Now, whatever you may say about Trump, he appears to be quite a vigorous person, does he not?
Yes.
He is jetting around the country, appearing at a great many rallies before a great many people, and it has also come to light that Hillary does not do very many rallies, and there are not very many people at them, and the question has been raised as to who appears at Hillary's rallies, because the suggestion has been made that normies are not allowed, that these are hand-picked audiences. And there's two reasons why you would hand-pick audiences. Well, Stephen Harper did a lot of this hand-picked audience business. The idea is you don't want the embarrassment of people shouting things out, or the embarrassment of people sitting on their hands and not giving you a rousing reception. There's a third reason why this would be done in Hillary's case, is because the campaign does not want to see how decrepit she is.
Well, that brings up the thing that everybody's been talking about this past week, and that's the schedule. I mean, she seems to fall off the radar for more than 1 or 2 days. I think it was up to 94 hours. I don't know what it is. The record's been, but they don't have much scheduled as well. Not much in advance, and
well, she appears to take weekends off.
Not just weekends, more than weekends. I mean,
well, yeah, I saw this campaign schedule in which there was only something like 7 events scheduled going into September.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably fundraisers from what I saw. But I mean, the rally events, I know that she gave 2 speeches in a row and then disappeared for a while. People are going, where that? I mean, that's what started the hashtag, Where's Hillary? How much is reasonable?
You could make the argument that Hillary's running a different kind of campaign. She could make that argument. We have the internet, we have social media. It's possible to reach a great many more people through electronic means than through personal means. Now, the introduction of the interstate highway system and reliable jet travel meant that politicians were able to travel great distances, often appearing in several different cities in a single day, and to appear in front of a great many people, which was not the case in the past. Hillary could say that she finds this method inefficient, but she is not arguing that. What we're getting from Hillary's campaign is, oh, blah, 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 this is the fringe of the internet. No, by the way, did you know that Donald Trump is a puppet of the Kremlin?
Yeah, there is a lot of attempt at redirection. And I think, in fact, they're starting to call for Donald Trump's health records again. So they're basically just, pumping it out, trying to turn it around. But these absences, I think, are the thing that's going to make a lot of people question what's going on. Now, she could always come back, of course. Yeah,
absolutely, because the question came up of her absence or her alleged absence during the Benghazi debacle. The president is supposed to be available 24 hours a day. The accusation was made against Nixon in the final days that he was getting drunk because he was so depressed. That accusation rather endeared Nixon to me because I thought that's exactly what I would be doing.
Well, maybe Hillary's off getting tanked. I mean, we know she likes to drop, as we said. So
Well, there's another thing that came up, which is that Dr. Drew Pinsky, Dr. Drew, I don't believe I've ever seen his show. I do know that he's a big deal, and that many millions of women watch his show every day. And he said on his radio show this week that he was concerned, according to Fox News, about the, quote, 1950s level of care, unquote, that Clinton was receiving.
What does he mean by that? Is he talking about the doctor running around with the pen, or?
Well, he was talking about the treatment that she's getting for whatever conditions that she suffers.
Well,
if I don't believe that any candidate would willingly admit that he or she was incontinent.
Yeah,
it's not just the jokes. It's what I mentioned before. This idea. Well, there was this Ben Garrison cartoon that I saw on Twitter, where you remember that kid's game Operation.
Oh yeah.
Well, he had turned her into the Operation figure.
Okay.
And the idea, incontinence is something that's gravely embarrassing, and it just suggests someone who's not fit to be president of the United States. I don't know whether that's actually true, but this just goes back to something that is really crucial to the Hillary phenomenon, is that there are just endless stories suggesting that there's something wrong with this woman, that there's something wrong with her morally, ethically. And what do we get? We just get a never-ending list of excuses, right?
Well, denials,
we get the excuses, and we get this turned around on her accusers.
Yeah, that's the...
That Hillary is, well, she's never done anything wrong. Well, mistakes may have been made, but nothing wrong has been done. And the real problem here is the people who are making these accusations about her. I mean, Hillary's one of those kids, we all know the type, who gets into trouble and there's always an excuse.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, you remember this from your childhood, or you remember it from this sort of thing comes up at work. That how come this person is always getting away with this stuff? People whose life is one excuse after another tend to be distrusted and, well, hated. Am I going too far there?
Nope, that's fine.
Well, Dave Weigel of the Washington Post and of journalist infamy had a piece a few days ago in which he said, this was just the Trump Twitter trolls. There is nothing to this. Now, he didn't mention the lesion on her tongue, suggestive of a biopsy. But his argument was pretty much, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Now, as I was mentioning to you a few days ago, Hillary Clinton is now in the position that she could not be honest about her medical condition if it were not optimum, even if she wanted to. Because if she were to talk about, for instance, just feeling tired all the time, that would be pretty much the end of her campaign. Because you don't want the president to be someone who's feeling tired all the time. It's not going to get any better when she becomes president. It's not as if, I can relax now. Yeah. Because you recall when Reagan was president, Reagan liked to take naps. Oh, no, we can't have that. And I'm thinking, well, why can't we? This sounds like an excellent idea.
I like naps.
Presumably, if Reagan went to sleep around 2 o'clock in the afternoon and woke up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if the Russians invaded West Germany, they could wake him up.
That's possible. Right? Yeah, that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, we can't allow our presidents to have naps anymore. And the idea is they're supposed to be ready for anything 18 hours a day. And if that's the criterion, then you can't be tired all the time. Now, Weigel said in his story, his riposte, as it were, that Hillary was engaged in some humor with these reporters when she had this spike or brownout, as I have
floppy head
described it.
incident, yeah.
Yeah, the floppy head incident. I mean, I accept the explanation that there was some sort of brain incident which she attempted to cover up by mocking the bizarre behavior. You'll notice that there's this woman, a female reporter with corkscrew curly hair,
Yeah.
whose reaction is almost of Tex Avery proportions.
Yes.
One
Yeah.
expects her neck to extend by several feet and her eyes to come out of her head like saucers. She is so shocked.
I actually felt sorry for her. Yeah, I did actually, because she genuinely was shocked and concerned, and then tried to laugh it off. But you could see that there was a lot of doubt there. Anyways, sorry, continue.
Well, no, and she was joking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Hillary's been a public figure for 37 years. She is not known, to put it mildly, for her sense of humor. And according to Dave Weigel and all the other Hillary defenders, what we're supposed to believe is that 37 years into her public career, and roughly a week before she finally reaches the holy grail of becoming the Democratic nominee for president, she's thinking, you know who's really funny? Jim Carrey. I really like that movie, The Mask. I think the next time I'm asked some questions by a reporter, I'll do my own imitation of Jim Carrey and The Mask. That'd be really a scream, don't you think?
I don't think it worked.
Is that really
way.
what Dave Weigel expects us to believe?
Of the Washington Mockingbird, yes. I got very little trust for his
and
paper
then
anymore.
later on July 28th, this absolutely bizarre reaction where she seems to have regressed to the level of a 4-year-old being told that there's going to be ice cream cake after dinner.
Are you talking about the animal rights protest one?
No. The animal rights protest letter. She was on stage and she was standing next to her husband and
that was DNC. That was after the DNC speech. Yeah. Wow. I know
that was just shocking. Absolutely shocking. And then a week after that, she tells Chris Wallace on Fox News that she had short-circuited.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after that, there is this incident where you can't hear this. Apparently, there's some animal rights protesters at a campaign rally, and she stops cold. And a large black man comes up and tells her to continue. And, well, apparently this man has been identified as Olatunji Okanola.
The neurologist, yes.
Yeah, graduate of the Howard School of Medicine. And he seems to be playing the role of a male minder / nurse, although he is a physician. And he seems to have more powers than that because, continue. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that he's giving her permission. It's rather like he's ordering her to continue. Mm-hmm. And people have done some research on this, and it turns out that this fellow has been at her side going back, I think, to 2011.
Yeah, they have pictures of that. I'm looking at it right now. 2011 in the picture with Huma, and it looks like Wolf Blitzer as well in the picture. So,
and there's a suggestion that he carries around an EpiPen.
Yeah, some people have said that that's a flashlight.
Why would he be carrying a flashlight?
I don't know.
Why would he be carrying in his hand a flashlight?
To hypnotize her? Check her eyes?
No, but I mean,
check her pupils?
One uses a flashlight in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, one does not pull out a flashlight unless one needs one imminently. Mm-hmm. It's not the sort of thing that you carry around in the daytime thinking that it could become dark. If I wait long enough,
I mean, to check her eyes or pupils or something like that.
Well, perhaps.
I don't know.
Perhaps.
He was doing something very strange with it as the balloons fell and she walked off the stage, walked to the corner. They do have video footage. He's holding it out as if either he's going to jab her or he's shining a path for her. He's behind her, and he's, holding out this thing for some reason. It was a rather odd moment, very telling and kind of shocking.
Well, this EpiPen dispenses intramuscularly diazepam or Valium.
That's the speculation, yeah.
Yeah, that's the speculation. The other thing is that this gurning that she does, as the English say, this bizarre response to quotidian, hello, how are you? Yes, here I am on stage, or here I am walking amongst supporters. She has this look of glee on her face, or hysteria. And I was thinking, what could cause such an inappropriate reaction in terms of how happy she appears or deranged? And the only thing that I could come up with is if she had just heard that she was given a blanket pardon for all criminal acts that she had done, for all criminal acts which she was doing now, and for all criminal acts which she may do in the future.
Well, how far does she go with this? If she is really that ill, I mean, she's putting her life at risk here, at real risk, and she seems willing to continue. Some people speculated when she started her run that she was doing it to stay out of prison. So I guess that would give you incentive. But see, what is the incentive to go push yourself to death in this situation?
Before we get into that, I'll just mention that I had suggested a couple of weeks ago that this continual gurning of hers is indicative of incipient senile dementia. And I believe that to be true. I mean, this inability to control one's social state, and that this is tied together with her bizarre, inappropriate laughter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Gaddafi, who reportedly was sodomized to death with a large knife. We saw, he died. Ha, 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 ha. That's not very funny. And typically when a world leader laughs in response to something like this, it says supervillain. Is what it says, because you don't laugh at things like that.
Psycho killer,
Yeah. We had this leader in Canada called Jack Layton, who was a Toronto politician married to another Toronto politician who became the leader of the New Democratic or Socialist Party, or they used to be Socialist. I don't really know what they are now.
It was a federal party anyway.
Federal party. He became the opposition leader for the first time in Canadian history. It wasn't the Conservative Party or the Liberal Party that was in the opposition. It was the New Democratic Party, because Smiling Jack, as he was called, I don't know, he had a bald head and a mustache, and people seemed to find him delightful. And it turned out that in the 2011 election, he was dying. He was dying of cancer. And he had, what had he had done? He had broken his leg or broken his hip?
I think it was hip, yeah.
And it was suggested by our old colleague Colby Kosh that this was associated with his cancer, which they said was in remission. Well, they lied about that. They said they had nothing to do with it, and it turns out there's a very strong correlation between these things. And shortly after the election, in which he became opposition leader, he announced bizarrely that he was taking a leave of absence from his role, all of his roles, but that he was going to come back. That has never happened in history, for the obvious reason that it's crazy, right? And he gave a final press conference in which he was the very figure of death. He was the Grim Reaper. He was the Crypt Keeper. And he would shrunk. It was just appalling how much weight that he had lost. And they slapped on all this orange pancake makeup on his face and his neck, which made him look even more freakish. And he died within a month of this press conference. He lied every step along the way. And I bring this up because I think that something similar might be going on with Hillary Clinton. Now, if it were me, and the doctors had told me, well, we can't tell you exactly when you're going to die, but don't plan on anything beyond 2 years at best. and you're probably looking at being planted in the ground within a year. I would probably, look at some big questions, try and get my life in order, right?
Mhm.
Instead of, no, I'm going to campaign for a job that I won't be able to do even if I get it. And you
Yeah.
see that the lust for power in these people is so great that we have this proved with Jack Layton, and we saw it with Franklin Roosevelt, that the fact that they're dying isn't going to stop them. Hillary Clinton is a machine, or she's a hedgehog. To use the differentiation between the hedgehog and the fox. She knows one thing, that she wants to become president.
Mm.
That's the only thing she knows.
Yeah,
It's the only thing she knows.
and now we are obligated to do it for her. Even though she may be there only for a few months, I suppose. Would she make it to inauguration? I don't know. Well, probably. She doesn't.
Well,
she is walking onto stage now, and she is giving speeches of a half-hour length. This is shown, and there's not that many people around to freak her out. Her rallies are not very big.
So just what happens when she leaves the stage? When she is no longer in the camera's view? That I suspect that there are all these people with headphones on and or earbuds, and they're getting a message from Central Control saying, swarm, swarm, swarm.
Mm-hmm.
And they all rush in to prevent Hillary from cracking her skull open on the floor.
Well, really, all she's doing in between rallies is traveling anyway, so that's not too rigorous.
It is debilitating. It's highly debilitating. Airplane travel is proven to be highly debilitating.
Is it?
Indeed it is. There is the lack of oxygen.
Mm-hmm. There
is the constant changing of time zones. There is the inability to get to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's there are pictures out there, and these shocked me more than any of the incidents that you have cited. These are just pictures of her walking along in a crowd where she is deathly white. There's such a pallor on her face that I couldn't help but wonder if this had been photoshopped, because she looked like, she had basically flour makeup applied to her face. The Germer Wormtongue kind of ugly, greenish, bluish face, that made her look like she was at death's door. Have you seen some of these?
Yes, I have. Yeah. But there's also another thing we should mention is a really significant weight gain fairly recently. Now, you must have seen this yourself. This has happened to several prominent people, that they are so sick that they are given these medications which just screws up their body to the extent that they gain an enormous amount of weight in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's usually associated with, illness. Either it's a tremendous weight gain or a tremendous weight loss. It seems to swing one way or the other. Now, she seems to have gained most of her weight from the hips down. And I don't know if this is the result of a bad diet. I can't see her getting anything but the best of healthcare at this particular time, right? They got to be watching her diet like crazy. They got to be watching.
Well, there's just been the suggestion, including from her own camp, that Hillary likes a drop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are certainly some pictures that make her.
Yeah, well, there's that great picture.
Mm-hmm.
There's that great picture of her holding a tumbler of some kind of whiskey. I don't know whether it's rye or scotch.
Apple juice, probably.
Yes. And she is holding on to the luggage rack of a plane for dear life. And she has this blissed out expression on her face,
Mm-hmm.
She has that drinking expression that life is good, life is really good. I wish I could just freeze this moment and live in this moment forever.
Yeah, she does look happy in that picture.
Yeah. But when you get to be her age, drinking takes a lot out of you. Even not very much drinking takes a lot out of you. And you wake up the next day, and it takes some time to recover. If you have as much as, for someone like her, if she had as much as, say, 5 or 6 drinks, it would typically take a whole day to recover. And there has been the suggestion with regard to her inability to negotiate stairs without two, fit men helping her up, that this could be due to dehydration. Now, dehydration is a condition which is associated with alcohol use, because alcohol use dehydrates the body.
Yeah, so does coffee. Coffee will do that too. So
Yes, that's true.
And wearing lots of clothes on a hot day could do it.
But I wanted to, we've already talked about Woodrow Wilson and JFK and Franklin Roosevelt and Reagan. I wanted to bring up Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin died in March 1953, and the circumstances of his death are something of a mystery. It is suggested that he had some sort of brain incident, and that even that he was there on the floor and all of his aides, the people in the government, Communist Party, that they looked on in awe and horror. What do we do?
Paralysis, yeah.
Well, we'll just we'll call in the doctors. Well, of course, at that point, Stalin was involved in something called the Doctor's Plot, in which all these Jewish physicians were basically accused of being assassins, and the doctors were not held in very high regard in the Soviet Union at that time. Oh, we'll take him to a hospital, but do we really want to take him to the hospital because this suggests weakness? I mean, that's how Glenn Gould died, because Gould had made it clear that no hospitals for him, and the publicity and the lack of privacy. And Gould's male minder just sort of stared at him. What do I do? What do I do? And by the time he took him to the hospital, it was too late. And the suggestion is that with Stalin's death, that the life ebbed out of him, that the calculation was made, okay, we're going to do nothing. Because if we do something, Stalin is going to find some excuse to kill us or to torture us and then kill us. So if we do nothing, well, there's less chance of being blamed. And there's always the possibility that he might just die on us, and then our worries would be over, which is what happened. And I bring this up because I'm going to go back to my joke of her being smothered with a pillow, because I'm thinking that if Hillary were to suffer another stroke, maybe even a minor stroke, oh, well, of course, now she's going to have to drop out as the nominee. Oh, what, she's not? She's not going to drop out? She's going to attempt to continue? And I don't think anyone can notice how I'm speaking, right? And so this absolute horror that if Hillary were further debilitated than she is already, and was adamant that her turn was not going to be taken away from her, and the Democratic Party looked at the greatest blowout in American electoral history, with the Democratic Party being wiped out across the board because they're tied to Hillary, then the pillow gets brought out. And then it's announced that she died suddenly of a previously undiagnosed respiratory ailment.
Back to that, yes.
Yes, I am back to that, and I am now rating the chances of that as 50%.
50%. What
50%.
What brought it back to even odds here? What brought it back? I mean, before you were...
The bizarre behavior before and during and shortly after the convention. That, as I said, again, my joke about the elevator scene from The Shining, that is only partly a joke. And again, I'll repeat, I think that the Democrats are absolutely terrified of something like this happening. Oh, or even, yes, could we stop the debate, Madam Secretary, again? I need to take a bathroom break. No, come on, seriously? Well, no, I have to leave the stage. I'll be back in, a short little while. And what we're all going to be sitting there looking at the TV going, okay, let's get the stopwatch going on this, right? I mean, can you imagine if something like that happened?
Well, there has been the suggestion that somebody is floating the idea that the candidates would be sitting during the debate. I don't know whether this was just slander coming out of the Trump supporters and the trolls, but that was one suggestion that was made, that the Hillary camp is going to lobby for that, The other one is that they've been talking up the idea that Johnson become involved in the debates because his poll numbers are going up, and the debate committee would allow him in there, which would take a considerable amount of heat off of Hillary.
But not Jill Stein?
Not Jill Stein, because her poll numbers are not high enough. But it would be, adding this third party in there would be enough to relieve Hillary of, I would say, significant heat.
Well, is he getting 10% in the polls?
Well, I think he needs 15 and to get into the debates or something like that. I'm not sure.
He's not going to get 15%.
He might magically get 15%.
Oh, magically. Oh, I see.
There's been a lot of magic polls lately. I don't know whether you've
look. If they put people in chairs, Trump is going to get out of his chair. I can guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm.
He is going. And what are they going to do? Mm-hmm. Are they going to say it's going to be like the Jerry Springer show, where those those bodybuilders with the shaved heads?
Right.
Are they going to run out on the stage and physically force him back into his chair?
He will throw his chair like a wrestler.
Let's talk about nuclear codes.
I don't know any nuclear codes.
No? No.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Here's the
I'd use my birthday.
Misdirection from the Hillary camp.
Yeah, of course.
That at a time when there is a genuine public interest in Hillary's health, with the suggestion that she's not medically fit to be president of the United States, suddenly the suggestion is made that Trump is actually crazy. And do you know how crazy he is? He was asking questions about nuclear weapons. For instance, why don't we use nuclear weapons? We have been told that nuclear weapons could never be used by our side. Well, if that's the case, why do we have nuclear weapons? Joe Scarborough was putting this about?
Morning, Joe.
These strike me as very good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the United States has many thousands of nuclear warheads. Well, if they're not going to use them, why do they have them? The whole purpose of deterrence is that if the other side uses them, then you'll use them too. So the other side doesn't want to use them.
Mm.
If deterrence is built into the system because no one's ever going to want nuclear weapons, then why does the United States need 15,000 or however many it has? Maybe they could get by with 10, 5,000, 1,000, or even 50.
Mm-hmm.
The United States has nuclear submarines patrolling the oceans with nuclear weapons. They have the B-52s in the air the whole time. They have the ground-based nuclear weapons. The more nuclear weapons any country has, the greater the possibility of an accidental use of them.
Right.
So it strikes me that Trump asking questions about American nuclear policy, if this is actually true, and we don't know that it is, there's nothing unreasonable about it at all. But you see, oh no, Trump is the crazy guy, in the same way that Hillary's camp and her poodles in the media, Trump is the war candidate. No, Trump's the peace candidate. Hillary's the war candidate. Trump is the candidate of the rich. No, Hillary's the candidate of the rich. Trump is the candidate of the working man. That it's opposites day, mm-hmm. or opposites year with the mainstream media. And I don't know, perhaps I'm overfond of such declarations. I'm guilty of hyperbole from time to time. I've been observing American elections since 1964. I didn't follow that one too closely, but certainly closely every campaign since 1968, and I read a lot about the Goldwater campaign in 1964. The decision by the media to simply lie without respite for one candidate and to defame the other candidate, I have never seen it so blatantly as this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're even writing essays about it as if it's become sort of a moral imperative. That's
what the New York Times said.
Yeah, that's right. That Rutenberg piece.
Yes.
That was one of them. And then that was followed up by Dan Rather, who
I just want to quote. I want to quote from Rutenberg here.
Okay.
If you view a Trump presidency as something that's potentially dangerous, then your reporting is going to reflect that. You would move closer than you've ever been to being oppositional. That's uncomfortable and uncharted territory for every mainstream non-opinion journalist I've ever known. and by normal standards, untenable. This is a variation on the Trump is literally Hitler meme.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where they're going with this. They're trying to, it's a virtue signaling to their folks that it's okay to be evil, right? Because you're stopping literally Hitler, right? So do evil things in a good cause, right?
Well, look, the press is given privileges in the Western world, and these privileges are long established. They are based on the idea that the press provides a public service.
Mm-hmm.
What Rutenberg is describing is not a public service. It cannot be characterized as a public service.
Yeah.
And so are we supposed to be surprised when Trump bars the Washington Post, say, from certain events? Or, it seemed to me that Trump would be fully justified in saying that, okay, the New York Times, I'm not letting them anywhere near my campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've made it clear that you have no intention of even pretending to be objective.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I mean, this business that, Trump wants Hillary assassinated. That's not what he said. That's not anywhere close to what he said. It was obvious that he was suggesting that if you're a gun owner, if you believe in gun rights, if you believe in the Second Amendment, Hillary wants to take your guns, and so, you should support me and, show your strength by stopping Hillary. Now, it's very embarrassing for Hillary. It would be if we had a serious media in North America that Hillary went much further than Trump.
mm-hmm.
That Hillary did a interview late in the campaign season in 2008. Why are you still in the race? Well, things happen. All sorts of things happen. Like 1968, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And Keith Olbermann had a hissy fit about this. Keith Olbermann was simply beside himself that she would dare to bring this up. The bad news is that I'm behind in the delicate count. The good news is maybe we have another Bobby Kennedy situation and Obama gets shot in a hotel kitchen. That could always happen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, but she gets away with it. She gets a pass because, I mean, they're frantically trying to keep the focus away from Hillary, aren't they? They're trying to focus on Trump because, she is looking ill. She doesn't hold press conferences, so there's not a lot to write about except, the fact that she gives the speech every day and the same speech. And, the only thing interesting there is, maybe she'll blank out or pass out or something. It's pretty dull from her side. The crowds are small. It's nothing that you can really emphasize. So,
well, I wanted to read from an article by Liz Crokin in the Observer, and I should note from the beginning that this organization has an association with Trump. That Donald Trump is the father-in-law of Jared Kushner, the publisher of Observer Media. Mm-hmm. It's called Tech Companies Apple, Twitter, Google, and Instagram Collude to Defeat Trump. She mentions Wolf Blitzer mincing around. I love that word, mincing. Mm-hmm. I love the word mincing almost as much as I love the word scabrous.
Okay, so yeah.
There's a little inside joke there.
Yeah, okay.
And mincing around and drinking wine at the Democratic convention celebrating Hillary's nomination. So Apple is involved here. I did an interview on the pro-Trump podcast Magapod. The show's host, Mark Hammond, was disappointed Apple wouldn't run his show without an explicit warning. And I believe Paul Joseph Watson pointed out that Osama bin Laden, Adolf Hitler, not explicit, or there's no warning.
Mm-hmm.
And so after 48 hours, they changed this. Apple twice refused to publish a satirical Clinton email gate game, Capitol Hillary, claiming it was offensive and mean-spirited. Ooh, mean-spirited. Yeah, that's just the absolute worst. Mean-spirited.
This is the election where we make you cry.
Yeah, okay. So she says, I set up an Apple News account on my iPhone. First step, select an outlet. Conservative, but my news feed liberal. and just the overwhelming, bias in the selection of these stories. And she mentions, of course, that Tim Cook is a big, big supporter of Clinton's campaign. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange says that Clinton made a deal with Google and the tech giant is directly engaged in her campaign. It's been widely reported Clinton hired Eric Schmidt, chairman of Alphabet, the parent company of Google, to set up a tech company called The Groundwork. Assange claims that this was to ensure Clinton had the engineering talent to win the election. And many people have pointed out that the traffic from the Clintons to Google, the back and forth, is rather outrageous. Mm-hmm. Google alters its autocomplete functions to paint Clinton in a positive light. Steve Saylor's been carrying on about this for years, that he'd noticed that, so-and-so is gay. Is so-and-so gay? And then, no, Apple had apparently written a logarithm so that, no, it doesn't come up. This is what people are asking, right?
Right.
Now, Adolf Hitler, let's compare him to Trump. But Hillary Clinton, crime? No, that doesn't work, right? Then she gets into Twitter, that algorithms were written to filter out abusive and hateful replies to President Barack Obama. And curiously, Caitlyn, a.k.a. Bruce Jenner. Twitter is censoring hashtags and trending. What you see as trending is not really trending, because when things start trending that Twitter doesn't like, they're not trending anymore. Now, I could go on, but the media has declared war. They've declared war on Trump.
Right.
And they have this strange idea that they're not going to pay for it. Or maybe they're so frightened of what Trump is going to do as president that they have decided to fight to the death. It now strikes me as inevitable, or almost inevitable, that if Trump becomes president, which I believe he will, we're going to see that the trust buster Trump. We're going to see him as the disciple of Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. That these companies that we're talking about are highly vertically integrated. And many of them, such as Google and Twitter and Facebook, occupy monopoly-like positions. And I expect them to be broken up. I mean, I don't know how anyone could possibly complain about this. Going back to what I said earlier, they are not providing a public service. They are simply allies of one party and one candidate. That's not a public service. In fact, what they are doing is deleterious to the public good, because they are pretending to be one thing while doing another thing.
Yes, but aren't they part of the innovation economy? I got to explain that one. Okay, quickly. Yeah. Okay. There was a writer, Paul Wells, wrote a piece in the Toronto Star the other day where he said that Canada is switching from a carbon economy to an innovation economy. And we've been joking about that ever since. Anyways, moving on back to Hillary.
Well, while we're talking about this, you will recall that I have been receiving some flack because apparently I mispronounced the surname of the President of the United States.
Obama?
Oh, and I've been calling him Obama?
Obama.
Obama? Bama?
I don't even know. How do you say it? I don't know.
Bama Lama?
How are you supposed to say it? Yeah, I don't. What is his name?
I don't know. I thought it was Barack Hussein Obama.
Okay.
The second. I thought that was his name.
Yeah.
But you recall that when I was interviewing Jared Taylor and he was describing the difference between white and white.
Yeah.
I was thinking he must have, maybe he should have become a composer or something, because the subtlety in his hearing is, I'm not getting this.
No, you can hear it. White and white.
Well, no, but if you want to exaggerate it to white.
Yeah, okay.
If you want to have a diphthong in there, right?
Yeah.
But the way he was pronouncing it, I found it very, very hard. I kind of had to take him on trust there, that these were two different things.
Well, yeah, but we were pronouncing Obama as Canadians, so we are
all right.
accused. Sorry about that.
All right, and now that the pronunciation rodeo is over, as I say, I find this rather painful because I was a journalist for many years. I still do some journalistic work, including this effort. I have always been fond of the media, despite its many flaws.
Mm.
But the media has made itself so painful, such a obvious enemy of society, an enemy of society, an enemy of civilization, that they're crying out for retribution, which they deserve, and which I believe that they're going to get.
All right. I think with that wonderful thought, we can say that this is the end of episode 50 of Grace and Steel. I'm Kevin Steele.
Half a hundred. Now, I'll add this. We passed our 1 year anniversary?
No, we have not.
Oh, okay.
That's the 24th.
Okay, but we're coming up on it fast.
Well, the bills are starting to come in, yeah, for all the websites and stuff.
You have all these surprises planned for the 1 year anniversary?
Yeah. That's right. But they're a secret.
I don't want to put any pressure on you or anything.
Yeah. Well, I'll put some pressure on you. Well, one thing that has happened is that we have managed to revive the Ambler.
Yeah.
Kevin's blog, and he's starting to put some posts up now. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing more because I know that he's an excellent writer.
Yes, and there will be more.
Mm-hmm.
There will be many more.
Yeah, and then after that, hopefully I'll get mine going a little farther behind. And we're improving our website daily. That's something we're going to try to get revved up for the September go. And, of course, you've appreciated our guests, and I know that Kevin is scouring the world for more. So stay tuned for more from Grace and Steel. And until then, I'm Kevin Steele.
And I'm Kevin Michael Grace.